Months of hypothetically talking about this guy are finally, thankfully, over. Brendan Donovan is the Seattle Mariner. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Wasn't sure if we'd ever get to this point this offseason, but we're here. Ahoy, sailors. It is Monday, February 2nd, 2026. You're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. My name is Titan Gonzalez, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Colby Patnode. We're two lifelong Mariners fans who've been covering the team for over half a decade. And today we're talking about a trade and a player we have talked about for months now. Only now it is finally reality. The Mariners have officially acquired Brendan Donovan in a 3-team deal with the Cardinals and the Rays. We'll break down every angle of the trade, of course, from Donovan's arrival to what it costs and all that good stuff. But before we do, I want to shout out our title sponsor today, FanDuel. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. And if you're a new customer, bet just $5, get $200 in bonus bets if you win. So the deal, as it's being reported right now, we've been waiting for details for hours at this point, so we could finally record this episode. You know, Jeff Passan tweeted, the Mariners are getting Brendan Donovan, and we're like, okay, for what? For like an hour and a half, just refreshing Twitter over and over and over again. And we got little nuggets of, info here and there. And finally, I think we're able to piece it all together. And the deal looks something like this. Brendan Donovan is going to the Mariners. That's it for the M's. Ben Williamson, surprisingly, is going to the Rays. And that's it for Tampa, apparently. The Cardinals, they're getting Jurrangelo St. as expected. He was long rumored to be the headliner in this deal. He winds up being the headliner in this deal. Jurrangelo St. is going to the Cardinals. Ty Pete is going to the Cardinals. And the Cardinals are also getting Colton Ledbetter, an outfield prospect from the Rays, and the Rays comp round B selection in this year's draft as well. We had thought for a long time that the Mariners were going to have to trade their comp round B pick in this deal for Donovan. Turns out there was a comp round B pick that got traded. It's just from Tampa and not Seattle. So it's over, Colby. The chains of Brendan Donovan speculation have finally been broken. We are free now. Brendan Donovan is a Seattle Mariner. What's your reaction?
3 things. First of all, it's just going to be Colton Wong, so it doesn't matter.
Adam Frazier. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But no, first thing I noticed is that we didn't mention the names Kate Anderson or Ryan Sloan or Bryce Miller or Brian Wu or Laz Montez along with Jurrangelo St. Like, imagine that.
It's almost weird. As if, Mariners people kind of know what they're talking about.
It's weird to me because it doesn't feel like Seattle had to pay for the 9-win player that Donovan is off the field. But yeah.
That's still the craziest thing I've read all offseason.
Good for the Mariners. They get the benefit of the 9 wins that he provides off the field without having to pay for it. That's incredible.
By the way, if you don't know what we're referencing, consider yourself lucky.
Yes, good.
Consider yourself lucky.
You're on the right side of social media. Yeah, so the first thing is, way below what Cardinal fans and honestly what the Cardinals front office were expecting to get. It's really hard to look at this from a Cardinals perspective and not be like, Bloom, he didn't do terrible here, but he kind of looks like he overplayed his hand and he kept on waiting for this offer. And eventually it just came down to Seattle was the only team that was left at the end of this thing. And so, that's the first thing that comes to mind. Second thing that comes to mind is that, Jerry and Justin do not make trades that are risky ever. And apparently they don't have to, because this is another all-star quality player in which the Mariners gave up in the grand scheme of things very little. St. is a good prospect. Ty Pete, great dude, great athlete, not a great baseball player yet. Maybe he will be, but right now he's not. And Ben Williamson, we've talked about Ben. We're not fans of his game offensively, but
some of you think he's the greatest baseball player that's ever graced the sport.
He's a utility guy. I think at the end of the day, defense first utility guy, which is what Ty and I have said he's been since they drafted him as a money saving second rounder, college senior. And that's it. And they get an all-star out of it. And, I've said, I'd like the Mariners to get aggressive in trades and be a little uncomfortable in trades because they haven't done it in 10 years. And I guess they don't have to, because again, this is just kind of another trade where it's like, it's not like they didn't give up anything. It's just that the risk for this deal, like this cost to acquire this player, the risk is incredibly low. Even if Senja is a number 3 type of starter, like I think we all think his ceiling is, that's what you give up for a guy who is, a all-star, fringe all-star candidate for a couple of years. That's what you give up. So yeah, at the end of the day, my first thought is that good? This is the price that you should pay for Donovan. And yet somehow the Mariners didn't even have to pay the entire price. Like they got another team to pay probably half the price to acquire this guy for him. And all it cost you was Ben Williamson, who the Mariners very clearly, if you read in between the lines, very clearly, they did not think Ben Williamson was going to be their opening day third baseman. They were very much going to push Emerson to be that guy and really give him every opportunity to win the job. So, yeah, the Mariners don't lose anybody off their major league roster. They get to keep their own comp round B pick for now. Might be some other moves coming, but yeah, it's one of those things where there's really nothing about this deal to not like. You have your leadoff hitter. You have a guy who, can play multiple spots and multiple spots of need for you. And also a guy who doesn't have to play one of the spots that your young guys is going to be given an opportunity to get a lot of playing time from. So we talked about Donovan all winter. We knew he was the perfect fit. It just never seemed like the Cardinals were going to be sane enough to make this happen. And then we heard over the last really 24-ish hours, obviously Jerry's comments at FanFest and all that, and Buster Only last night. It just kind of felt like this was building towards like the Cardinals are coming back to the table and things are going to get, pushed one way or another. And here we are. So, I mean, it's a very good deal for Jerry and Justin. It's okay deal, I would say, for the Cardinals. I think they got roughly what Donovan's worth, which is a top 100-ish prospect fringe.
We had been saying it was probably going to be somewhere close to the Randy Arozarena deal, and that's kind of how it turned out. Now, we were talking about this off air before we hit record. I would rather trade Senja, Pete, and Williamson than Brody Hopkins, Aiden Smith, and Ty Cummings, which is what they had to trade for Randy Arozarena. But also you got one extra bite at the apple with Randy. Then you're going to get with Donovan, you only get him for 2 postseason runs, whereas you got 3 with Randy. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty close. It's a pretty comparable deal in the end.
Yeah, it's somewhere between the Polanco and the Randy trade.
Yeah.
Which again, those were the comps. I don't know where the Cardinals were getting this idea that Donovan was worth 2 top 100 prospects from, or 3 top, or a top 30 prospect, and then like a fringe top 100 guy. That's just not what these guys go for. And the Mariners, they stuck to their guns, and they were confident throughout this thing that they had the best offer and that they were going to land the guy that they wanted. And they didn't believe Bloom when he said, we might keep him. We might keep him into spring training. Don't think we won't. And the Mariners just pretty much all along the way continue to call the Cardinals bluff over and over and over again. And it led to them paying a price that I promise you they're thrilled with. They are not going to lose an ounce of sleep over this trade. And again, it's not because they hate Senja or Ty Pete or Ben Williamson. It's just, this is what they were willing to pay. This is what they wanted to pay to get this thing done. And they ended up paying it. They took a little bit of a creative route. If I'm not mistaken, this is the first true 3-team trade that Jerry DiPoto has made.
We've talked about this. He's made pseudo 3-team deals,
right?
Where he's like acquired a guy and then flipped him, an hour later to another team. But there's never been like a traditional 3-team deal that the Mariners have been involved in since DiPoto's taken over here. So yeah, this is really unique. And this is not, if you told me, or like if you asked me like what's the first 3-team deal Jerry DiPoto is going to make as Mariners GM / president of baseball operations, I wouldn't have guessed in a million years it would have been this deal, because it just felt so straightforward. And really, that the shocking part of this deal is the Ben Williamson / Tampa Bay Rays aspect of it. I legitimately can't believe that they were able to get the Rays to chip in a pretty solid prospect and a comp round B pick just for Ben Williamson.
Sure. Ledbetter's probably, roughly the outfield equivalent of Williamson. Like, he's probably more of a bench guy. But the comp round B pick, like, I honestly don't know what's more impressive, that Jerry was able to get, Donovan for the 2 prospects he gave up for him, or that he was able to get a comp round B pick from any team for Ben Williamson. Although I will say the fact that the Rays are the team that acquired Williamson makes me think he's probably going to end up being a 3-win player.
Of course. Of course, our comment section is going to own us once again, because that's just how things go. And Ray's devil magic is going to turn Ben Williamson into a 20 homer, Gold Glove 5-win player, because why not? My biggest critique of this whole offseason with the Mariners has been that they essentially painted themselves into a corner where they had to acquire one of basically 2 guys, right? It was Jorge Polanco and it was Brendan Donovan, and then they didn't get Polo, and then it very clearly became, just strictly focused on Donovan. And, yesterday when Jerry makes the comments at FanFest about, we've been trying to, make a push on a trade, and we think we got this one last move in us. It's like, clearly you're talking about Brendan Donovan. Anyone who's been paying attention knows that he was talking about Brendan Donovan. And sure enough, and, I got to give them credit at the very least. They painted themselves in this corner, but like they got it done. They got the guy that they wanted. So they were able to pull it out. They took a major, major risk here by not really having any other pivots, at least that we know of. And they were able to make it happen. So good on them for doing this and getting this thing pushed across the finish line. And I feel a hell of a lot better about this offseason after they made this move. Just so much better. I'm at a B. I'm at a B to a B plus now.
And again, I didn't need an A plus off season. I need them to do this, right? Like, if you're going to let your young guys try to replace one of your middle of the order bats that you lost, fine. You can't ask them to do it twice. And now they don't have to. And in fact, Donovan is such a good fit, because if Young and Emerson do both pop at the same time, which probably not going to happen, but if they do, no problem. We have right field wide open for Donovan, left field, move him around.
No, we've got too much.
Yeah.
That's
darn. Always been a long stated problem with the Seattle Mariners. Particularly this front office is, oh man, we have too much talent. We're not quite sure how to get everybody in the lineup that we want to get in the lineup. It's a very good move. They didn't have to trade anything too terribly, nothing they're really going to miss. Senja, I guess, had a shot to be in the big leagues this year, but obviously Sloan and Anderson pushed past him in their depth chart. And, obviously, I mean, heck, Jerry was even talking about Sloan maybe possibly being able to pitch in the big leagues this year. So I think they very much think that isn't really honestly ahead of not of Anderson or Sloan. They don't think Senja is ahead of either of them in terms of the depth chart and where they're going to be. And, again, to get something good, you have to give something good. Senja is a good prospect, fringe top 100 type, depending on where you want to look. Some people have him in the 70s. Some people don't have him in the top 100, but good prospect. And that's, Ty Pete, lottery ticket, Williamson, role player. Good prospect, lottery ticket, role player. You didn't have to give up your comp round B pick, which seemed like you would almost certainly have to if Senja was going to be the prize of the trade, and you didn't even have to do that. So it's a home run for Jerry and Justin. No guarantee it works. Hitters come into T-Mobile Park and struggle all the time, but that's the risk you have to take. You have to be willing to take that risk, and Donovan is the exact right type of player to take this risk on, and it's not even that big of a risk. It's pretty minimal. So it's a great deal for Jerry and Justin and the Mariners. They needed to get a little creative with it. And they found a way to get it done 1 week before pitchers and catchers report. So took it up to the wire this time, but they got it done, and kudos to them for figuring that out.
All right, coming up next, we will focus on the fit for Brendan Donovan. I mean, we've talked about it for months, but as a refresher, we'll go over how Donovan fits into everything, especially now that we have more context of how the roster is going to look and all that in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by FanDuel and the Space Needle. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff, the final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60. The Hawks are in it, and FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of the action with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing the favorite, riding with the underdog, or building one last same game parlay, this is the game everyone's been waiting for. This is where predictions turn into plays, stats turn into storylines, and every snap feels bigger. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to the final whistle. If you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. Make it count, because after the Super Bowl, the season is over. Last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Pine to Pie at the Space Needle is the perfect pregame or pre-funk spot before hitting Climate Pledge Arena. After 4 p.m., the Space Needle's Pine to Pie gives you the whole package. Entry, a sweeter savory tip-top pie, and a pint of beer, wine, or a non-alcoholic drink, all for just $35 per person. Minimum purchase of 2 required. Pine to Pie is your launch pad to Kraken, Torrent, and Storm games, as well as so many other great events at the CPA. So why not enjoy a little space and a great view while pre-gaming with your favorite cocktail rather than trying to cram into a crowded sports bar? Toast the home team, then roll into Climate Pledge with the best pregame story in all of Seattle. Whether it's date night, friend night, or you're just here for the deal of it all, come take your place on the horizon for only $35 per person. Limited time offer, 21 plus only, ID required. Get tickets at spaceneedle.com. Minimum 2 required. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen for all things Mariners. And also thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You already live your team every day. Now take it up a level and go ad free. Join the Everydayer Club today and get Locked On Mariners with no interruptions, members only Discord access, and more, all for just $5 a month or $50 a year. Go to lockedonmariners.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes to learn more. So we had recorded Mailbag Monday already. I fully edited it. I clicked export, and then I get a phone call from one Mr. Colby Patnode, and immediately I knew. I
only call Ty when a major move has been made.
Yep. And I knew that episode was basically going to waste, because a lot of the things that we said on that episode are irrelevant now. And you will never see that. It will never see the light of day. We will.
You might see
re-record. Yeah, we'll use some of the questions and some of our answers probably in tomorrow's episode. But we're also going to put out a tweet on Blue Sky. And also, if you're on our Discord, link in the description below, you can join for free. We will answer some more post Donovan trade relevant questions on tomorrow's show. So if you have a question, hit us up on Twitter, Blue Sky, or in the Discord.
Sure. Keep in mind that there's only so many Donovan questions we can answer. So if you end up with 6 Donovan questions, probably one of them is getting answered. So just keep that in mind. But
hey, maybe also ask us about like some of the things that got announced at FanFest. I don't know. We got nothing about Steelhead that.
Unit. Ty and I are big fans of the Steelhead uni. So yeah.
So I don't know if you want to ask us about that. Just saying, just putting that out there. Anyway, for months we've already, we've talked about Brendan Donovan's fit, why he's such a good fit here, how it would all work. But we're going to get back into it anyway. We'll refresh you guys on how we think this is all going to come together for Donovan now that he is officially a Mariner, which is crazy to say. It's crazy to know that we're finally done with this and we're not talking about Donovan anymore in a hypothetical sense. Adam Jude tweeted, Brendan Donovan played primarily second base in St. Louis, but he's played all over, and the Mariners see him as a viable third baseman. M's intend to give Cole Young and Colt Emerson chances to make the roster. But part of the reason Donovan's versatility was important to them was is to give them some runway, of course. The way that I feel this is ultimately going to play out is Cole Emerson is going to break camp with the team. That just became clearer and clearer and clearer over the last few months. And it's not just the context clues that we've gotten over the course of the offseason. It's also the context clues that we got towards the end of the regular season with them putting him up in AAA when they really didn't need to for that playoff run with the Rainiers, them adding him to the taxi squad, practice squad, whatever it was for the playoff run in Seattle. That all seemed to just scream to me that we want Cole Emerson ready to be on the major league roster, either on opening day or pretty close to it. And as this offseason has gone along, I've just felt more confident by the day, really, that Emerson was going to be the guy. And now with Ben Williamson getting traded, I feel even more confident in that. So it's possible that Donovan starts the year as just the primary third baseman, and they let Emerson get some more time in Tacoma. But I think he's going to make the roster, and at that point, Donovan floats, right? He's an everyday player who doesn't have a real defensive home. He's going to play 5 to 6 times a week. He'll play some second, he'll play some third, he'll play some left, he'll DH a little bit.
Play some
he'll do all that. Yeah.
He's got a good enough arm to move. Arm is not an issue for Donovan. He's not one of those second baseman can only play second. So he can float anywhere, make all the throws. And then it still depends also though, like there's a possibility Cole Young also really impresses and he makes the opening day roster. And we're looking at Donovan as the opening day right fielder, because right now that's Rayleigh and Robles, with Canzone and Refsnyder probably being the DH. So yeah, the versatility, it was important to them, and you see why, because now the avenue does exist for Cole Young and Colt Emerson to make the team, but you don't have to have both of them. And before this trade, it felt like you were counting on both of them to make your opening day roster, and that's not the case anymore. And so again,
and now you can pick your spots with them too. Like if there's a really tough righty that you're going to face, like say Jacob deGrom's on the mound, I don't want to expose Cole Emerson to that. Cool, I don't have to now.
Sure, I mean maybe you do, maybe you don't, but like yeah. So from that aspect, just in terms of positionally, we talked about this all winter. This is what made Donovan such a good fit, is that he can play pretty much anywhere except for catcher, shortstop, and center field. Like, could he fake it at shortstop for a couple of innings? Sure. I'm sure he could. But it's just, you don't want to play in those positions, but he can play anywhere else. And so you can kind of pick and choose on any given night where you want the young guy to play and if you want both of them to play. And so, yeah, positionally speaking, Donovan was a tremendous fit, and they needed a guy like this. Nobody's really talked about the Dylan Moore aspect of it all. We understand he wasn't even here for all of last year, but again, the Mariners needed a guy who could play the corner outfield and play all over the infield on this roster. It just so happens that the guy they got to kind of fill that role a little bit is an everyday player, not a pure role player like a Dylan Moore type. And now, they have some versatility, so they can get a little different with their bench too, if they so want. So the defensive versatility was important here, but obviously the big impact of Donovan is going to be in the lineup and how the Mariners structure their lineup now that they've added Donovan to the mix.
So I assume Donovan's going to be the primary leadoff guy against right-handed pitching.
Yep.
And Rob Refsnyder is going to be essentially a leadoff platoon with Donovan, where he's going to lead off against lefties.
Yeah.
And then against lefties, Donovan hasn't been particularly good against them. He was a 75 WRC plus against lefties this past year. I think he probably still makes his way into the lineup against lefties. Like, again, like he's going to be an everyday player for the Mariners. But he's probably hitting what, 7th?
6th or 7th. Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, note here from Just Baseball. Since Brendan Donovan debuted in 2022, he is one of only 13 hitters with at least a 360 on base. That's a minimum of 2,000 plate appearances. The names ahead of him, in case you were curious: Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, Freddie Freeman, Shohei Ohtani, Yandy Diaz, Bryce Harper, Kyle Tucker, Vlad Jr., Christian Yelich, Mookie Betts, and Jose Altuve. Yeah. Pretty good company. That's your leadoff hitter. Then against lefties, we'll see. And look, 75 it's fringe playable against lefties, but the fact that he was a 140 WRC plus against righties last year certainly makes the trade-off worth it. And again, even if he's not crushing left-handed pitching, he's still going to provide value because he's an able base runner and he's a good defender. And obviously he can still get on base against lefties. So yeah, Donovan is going to be the leadoff guy. I'd be pretty surprised if it wasn't. And more importantly, it allows you to push Randy from leadoff to fifth, which is probably closer to where he belongs, or fourth. I guess if they want Naylor to hit fifth, they could do that too. But yeah, I think the Mariners lineup is starting to take shape, at least 1 through 5. It's going to be Donovan, Julio, Cal, probably Naylor, and then Randy. Maybe they flip those two guys, but yeah, I think that'll be the 1 through 5 on opening day. Obviously, pending injuries and whatnot, because there's no hiding from those. Those are going to happen at some point, and you just hope it's not too serious. And by the way, Donovan's missed some games in his career, so this is why we talked about Donovan isn't an elite player that you give up a huge trade package for, because there are some red flags here, and those are the two of them. He doesn't really hit lefties, and he has some injuries in his past, and the Mariners paid a price that reflected that. So yeah, Donovan in the lineup is going to hit leadoff. He's going to get on base a ton. Not a great base stealer, but a pretty good base runner. And he'll set the table very nicely for Cal and Julio, and him and JP kind of on the turn there. Assuming JP hits ninth, maybe he doesn't, but yeah, the Mariners lineup is starting to take some shape here, and it looks like a legitimate lineup now. It's funny how just one good player can turn the entire thing around.
Well, because now it eliminates one position that was just like up in the air, one spot on the roster that was just completely up in the air. Like, who knows? Again, the Mariners are taking a lot of bets here, and they still are, even after the Donovan acquisition. But it does shore up one more spot, and it does lengthen the lineup, and it does give you an answer to a role that you haven't really had for a while. Like, you haven't had a real traditional leadoff hitter since like JP was killing it as a leadoff guy. But JP, to me, I think is better suited as the page turner, as the 9-hole hitter, to get you back to the top of the lineup. I think that's the role that best suits him. So they really needed a leadoff guy. Randy was pretty solid in it, and then he tailed off, obviously, in the last couple of months of the season. The playoffs did not go well for him and all that. But Randy is better suited to hit in the middle of the lineup. His presence is better suited to be in the middle of the lineup. And again, when you have lost Gino Suarez, who again wasn't good at T-Mobile Park post deadline, I know that, whatever, but he was still pretty good when they were
still
away
a
from
threat in the middle of your lineup.
And he was still a threat. When you've lost him, when you've lost Jorge Polanco, you needed to be able to beef up that middle portion of your lineup a bit better. And while Brendan Donovan specifically doesn't do that, what he does do is he pushes Randy Arozarena into that role now, and helps you kind of address that as well. So, I think also this deal, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this, because this is something that I've been thinking about, and this was something that I was planning on us to talk about, later this week. Maybe we still will a little bit. I do feel like Donovan's arrival does kind of signify that the Mariners are changing their identity a little bit. I don't think fully, but they're changing their identity a little bit in the way that they want to win games a little bit, because they've lost a lot of home runs this offseason. Obviously, with Gino gone and Jorge gone, and this was a team that heavily relied upon the home run ball to win baseball games in 2025. And look, they still got guys that are going to hit a ton of home runs, but like Cal's probably not going to hit 60 again, so you were going to lose homers from that. And then again, with the departures of Polo and Gino, like you were going to lose a lot of pop. You're hoping that, with a healthy season, Luke Raley makes up for some of that. Dom Canzone, hopefully he continues what he did at last year, and he, makes up for some of that. But it does feel like
really.
But Donovan, with the versatility, he's a pretty good defender wherever he plays. That and Cole Emerson should be pretty good defensively. I don't think Cole Young is anywhere near as bad as he was this past year. He was dealing with a shoulder thing, so I think him being healthy, he'll be a lot better at second base. Now, JP's still a little bit of a problem at shortstop defensively. So like they're not
only a year left there.
They're not great defensively still, but they are better. And it feels like they're in a better spot from a run prevention standpoint. And you've seen them target guys who have high ground ball rates. And, you already had guys like Carlos Vargas in your bullpen. You had someone like Jose Ferrer. It does seem like this is a conscious effort to more so focus on run prevention, to be a more contact oriented teams, do the little things a little bit better than they have in the past. And Donovan continues to kind of to play into that. So I do think we're kind of seeing the Mariners change who they are And I think that is for the better.
We'll probably see more of it next year, assuming we have a season, because Randy and JP are your two worst defenders, and they'll be free agents. And presumably Colt Emerson will be the shortstop, and we'll see what they do at third base at that point. And presumably then Donovan would be your primary left fielder, which would be two pretty big upgrades defensively as well. Donovan doesn't strike out. Naylor doesn't strike out. JP doesn't really strike out. A big part of the calling card of Cole Young is that he makes a ton of contact. Colt Emerson, not expected to be a huge strikeout guy, but it's year one, so who knows there. And you just kind of look at it. And then the guys who do have some strikeout issues, Cal, okay, he's an elite catcher who can hit 60 bombs. Like you're not worried about the strikeouts there. So it does feel like there's more balance there. Although, Polo didn't strike out either last year. After doing it a ton in his first year in Seattle, he didn't really do it last year, but Ref Snyder going to strike out less than Garver. So, there does feels like there's a little bit more of a emphasis being put on, more contact, more walks, more, station to station, but also aggressive base running. And again, Donovan, pretty good base runner. Obviously Naylor, great base runner, although so slow. Such a good base runner. He thinks he's faster than he is. Young is supposed to be a good base runner. Emerson's supposed to be a good base runner. Again, not necessarily burners, but like just smart, athletic, base runners. And it is a change, but yeah, we'll see how it goes. Obviously, they're certainly more athletic than they were with Gino and Polo. But the power is legit. You have to hit home runs in the postseason. We know that. And we'll see what happens, when they get there. Maybe, I don't know, maybe Rayleigh and Canzone combine for 40. And we're just sitting here like, oh, well, yeah, home runs aren't a problem. But we'll see how it goes. But yeah, it does feel like there's slowly started to be a shift away from, we're trying to hit tanks to like, let's play to the ballpark a little bit. But you still need that power. And thankfully, again, with Julio, Randy, and Cal. Yeah. And then also Naylor could hit 30 if he wanted to, but
and then there's obviously upside with Canzone and Rayleigh. And then, Emerson could also, provide
20,
he could contribute in that. Yeah, he could contribute in that department. Yeah.
Sure. Cole Young has surprising pop, I think we can officially say.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So we'll see how it goes. But that certainly is a possibility. But, I know we got to move on here, but we're just thinking of that lineup right now. And it's probably Donovan leading off. Cal hitting second, Julio third, Naylor fourth, Randy fifth, and then you're going something like probably Rayleigh, then Canzone, then Emerson, then JP.
Yeah.
That's 5 or 6 guys in your lineup that are going to strike out below league average clips.
Yeah.
And probably take a lot of walks. In fact, we know Donovan and JP will take a ton of walks to kind of flip the thing around, and we'll see with the young guys. But that's a much better lineup than we were talking about yesterday. And there's a lot of different ways they can beat you, which, last year they didn't hit home runs. It was,
well, that's tricky. What I was going to say, right? Like it's like you need to hit home runs. You have to, especially once you get to October. Once you get to October, you need to hit home runs. But at times last year, it felt like if they didn't get the big home run, they were done. They were cooked.
Now, we should point out, just because, it's obvious, the Mariners made it to Game 7 of the ALCS last year with a strategy that was hit home runs and pitch.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they did it, honestly, without really pitching that much either. Like, they didn't really pitch that well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, like, what they did last year worked just fine. This could work too. So it's just one of those things, and we'll see how it works out. Again, I am a little concerned about the lack of thump in the middle of the lineup, but I do think that it is made up for with some better run prevention and some higher on base guys. Not all contact is good contact. Just keep that in mind. But Donovan certainly helps in a lot of areas that Polo doesn't. And when you look at their careers, Donovan has been a better hitter than Polo.
Yeah.
Just Polo was really good last year, and I don't know if Donovan will get there, but yeah, it's just kind of a different way to put together a team, and it's kind of honestly fits their ballpark more than what they've done the last couple of years.
And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, if you want to hear from me and Colby even more and help support the show, we have a Patreon. It's called Control the Zone. And on there, we talk Mariners, Seahawks, all that good stuff. For more information, go to patreon.com/control the zone. Link in the description of this episode. All right. So Jeff Passan just tweeted that the Cardinals are receiving 2 competitive balance round B picks. So I think it's safe to assume that the Mariners are trading their competitive balance round B pick as well in this deal. So that changes things a little bit. Does that change how you view the trade much, if at all?
I mean, I think it went from like an A+ to like an A-.
Okay.
Yeah, like we assumed that the B pick was going to be involved no matter what. And, it thought for, hour there that it wasn't, and that was awesome. But yeah, no, it again, kind of stings. You like the bonus money and all that, but Donovan is just too good of a player to pass up, and he fits so well that you're not going to let the idea of maybe a good prospect, stop you from getting a guy that is good right now. So yeah, I think, it certainly makes the Cardinals side of things look a little bit better. But keep in mind, those comp round B picks are typically somewhere in the 70s.
Yeah.
So it's not like the Mariners.
But it adds bonus pool money and all that. So that allows them to maybe do something better than they previously could have done.
From a Cardinals perspective, I would like this deal a lot more now.
Yeah.
From a Mariners perspective, I don't like it much less, if that makes sense. Yeah. It's still a really good trade for Jerry and Justin.
So I've said this a bunch over the offseason, but I'll just reiterate it. I'm sure we got a lot of new listeners tuning in, maybe for the first time or for the first time since maybe October or what have you. Hello, welcome. If I had to pick between one of the two, and the Mariners could have made both work, and maybe they were trying to make both work, but if I had to pick between one of the two, I would take Brendan Donovan over Jorge Polanco. I think Donovan makes you a better team than Jorge Polanco does, because Polo had a great year last year. Don't get me wrong. What he did in 2025 was fantastic. And he was a big reason that you were able to get as far as you did. But I mean, he exceeded everyone's wildest expectations. He did something that he's really never done before in his career. And he should primarily be a DH. Now he's going to play first base for the Mets, and we'll see how that goes. But he should primarily DH at this point, with all the lower leg injuries that he's had to deal with and all that, or lower body injuries, I should say, that he's had to deal with and all that. So Donovan has been a perennial 115 to 120 WRC plus guy. Yeah, he doesn't have the pop that Jorge Polanco does, but he has been a consistent, 15 to 20% above league average hitter. And that's kind of what Jorge Polanco was in his best days in Minnesota. He just did it differently than Donovan. But I think because of the versatility that Donovan brings defensively, how he fills a different, but also, equally important role for the Mariners, having a more traditional, true leadoff guy at the top of the lineup. I think he's just a better fit overall than Polo was. I would have loved to have both. Don't get me wrong, and they could have easily made both work. But again, if I had to pick one or the other, I'm taking Donovan. Yeah,
fun little note here, and I'm sure we're getting ready to wrap. We'll talk about what comes next here in a second. But this from Passan, player A.
I saw that. Yeah.
Player A in 366 games, 282, 351, 420, 117 WRC plus 7.5 WAR. Player B, 355 games, 291, 10-point difference in batting average, 333, 18 points and on base, 445, 116 WRC plus 8 WAR. Two players essentially the same in terms of production. Player A is Brendan Donovan. Player B is Bo Bichette.
Who just got how much? 42 mil a year?
Yeah, 3 and 126, I believe.
Yeah. And again, they do it very differently.
Yes.
Donovan's a way better, more versatile defender than Bichette is. Bichette hits, a billion doubles, and, he can hit 20 plus bombs and all that stuff. But
better base stealer. Oh, well, he was back in the day.
He was, not anymore for sure. No. But yeah, Donovan is a really, really good player.
He is.
There's obviously some warts here. I wouldn't say
Sure.
there are any red flags, but there's some warts. There's some things that you can nitpick
He's
for sure.
not a slam dunk all-star player. He's a
No.
fringe all-star player.
No, but he's the kind of guy that really, again, the Mariners needed to lengthen the lineup, to fill a very specific role, to give them the versatility that allows them to still give their young guys runway while also protecting themselves. This is all we were asking for, right? When you guys were asking us, how do we feel about the offseason so far? How do we feel if this is it? Our biggest issue was, like, our issue isn't really like giving Cole Young and Cole Emerson playing time. It's the fact that you didn't have really any safety nets in case you're wrong, like in case Cole Emerson isn't good, at 20 years old, which is, there's a high likelihood that's the case because he's 20 years old facing major league pitching every single day. Same thing with Cole Young. Like, we don't know if he's going to be able to pop in year two. We don't know. So this allows you now to have an option to just put there every single day, at second base or third base. If you're wrong on one of those guys, maybe you're wrong on both of those guys, but at the very least, now I only have to address one of those spots. I don't have to address both, if that's the case. And if you're right on both of those guys, great.
Yeah.
Like we talked about earlier. Oh no, I have too much. Like, yeah. So this is what we've been talking about, right? And so again, I just feel so much better about this offseason. Seriously, like when you called me today, because I immediately knew what it was about. Like, I didn't have to look at Twitter to know that it was going to be a Donovan trade. When I saw your name pop up on my phone, I just felt this like weight lift off my shoulders. Like, oh, thank God, thank God they did this. Like, they're just, I know it. Brendan Donovan's kind of a fringe all-star caliber player. It's just one guy, but it really does change the calculus a lot for this club. All right. Well, that's going to do it for us. Again, we'll do a mailbag episode tomorrow. Probably use some of the answers that we gave today in today's recording. Probably just reuse those in tomorrow's show. We'll see. But we'll also put out another tweet on Twitter, on Blue Sky. You can also drop us questions in Discord if you want to ask us something now after the Brendan Donovan trade. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Once again, if you never miss an episode, it's time to make it official. Join the Locked On Everydayer Club and get ad-free audio, access to our members-only Discord, and more, all built for our most loyal fans. For Colby Patnode, I'm Titan Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Titan Gonzalez and Colby at CPAT11. That's CPAT11. We're also on Blue Sky. You can follow me at TDG, Colby at MLB Colby, and the show at Locked On Mariners. You can also find us on Instagram at Locked On Mariners. Have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you next time. Peace.